Tonight, we look at the work of a film company politely called Maverick by the establishment. They don't like playing by the conventions of cinema and want to ensure that the real feelings and interests of the working class are documented in the 21st century. While the red-top newspapers will have you believe that lower-class interests are owned by the conventions of cinema and want to ensure that the real feelings and interests of the refreshing alternative view. However, they do go where many fear to tread, and we don't recommend this edition of the show to those of a sensitive disposition. Their work has uncovered the shocking truth behind alternative view. However, and they ask some very difficult questions of some famous people in the establishment. Is it really the case that those elite sections in our society are joining forces to ensure their dark secrets are not exposed to the masses? They wouldn't do that, would they? Let's find out as we go on the edge. Hello, I'm AlexG and welcome to our new studio, the first programme going out live, and to tell us all about how you can interact to join in with the experience, here's Melissa.
Thank you, Alex. Text in, as usual, on 86686, type the word EDGE, leave a space and then your message. Must remind you that normal network charges apply, and I'm waiting to hear from you.
And indeed, Melissa will be giving us the cream of your comments that you send in to us at regular intervals throughout the show. Now, our guests tonight are Bill Maloney and Lilly Starr from Pie and Mash Films. Welcome along to On the Edge. Now, one phrase I have heard you coin for your work is citizens' media. So, what do you mean by that?
Freedom of speech.
Right.
Simple as that, really. It's freedom of speech, and not necessarily orchestrated or the same accents. You know, we do represent the lower classes, and there's not much that is made for them, especially to explain what's going on around the world. You know, and a lot of the lower classes, they find it difficult. They won't even watch news programmes or certain documentaries, especially by the BBC. And you know, other national broadcasting companies,
sure.
Because they just can't relate to it, Alex, you know what I mean? And so we're there really to relate.
Voice on the street.
Voice on the street, that's what we are. We're the voice on the street, you know, and we are, like you say, we are Mavericks. Or they like to call us Mavericks, but you know, we're just hard hitting, and we tell the truth like it is. And you know, it's even yourself. You know, you have your scripts and things like that. We don't do that. You know, we just get out there, and we just try and tell you it as we see it.
Absolutely.
As we see it, and our backgrounds sort of qualify us, if you like. You know, Lilly and I, we both had tough lives, and you know, we came together 5 years ago. You know, because I originally started off in the film industry. You know, I was a film director, and I was just sort of beginning to be offered quite a bit of work, and I acted as well. And I did make a couple of films, and I also acted in a couple. One they've had on Sky, you know, The Calcium Kid. I was in that. Just a small part, you know. If you blinked, you missed me. But I had a scene with Orlando Bloom, so I took it. And then I had another film I was in as an actor with Colin Firth, you know, and I was acting opposite Colin. And even all those years ago, I said to my producer, I'm taking these because they're going to be good in the future. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I was, within myself, I was always thinking about becoming an activist filmmaker,
So it's always been in the blood, that sort of...
Yeah, it's always been in the blood because of the way I was brought up and my family as well. You know, we were all really severely abused by the institutional care system, so-called care system in this country.
Yep.
And that's what I am interested in. My main subject is institutional paedophile rings that are operating in this country now. And mothers and fathers who are having their, from the lower classes, whether they've got learning difficulties or, like I say, they just don't speak right.
Yeah.
As you know, Gordon Brown and Tony Blair are trying to build their middle-class society. I believe Gordon Brown said, we've created another middle-class people. Well, that's another million middle classes.
Yep.
Well, that's okay for you lot, but what about us? You know, because it's the lower classes that rebuilt this country on more than one occasion. You know, I'm starting to sound a bit like Bob Crowe here, you know. But it is true. Yep. We built Buckingham Palace. We built St Paul's Cathedral. We rebuilt London after the Blitz. That's what we do. We lay bricks. We're electricians. We're labourers. We're workers. We look after your mums and your dads when they go into care and clean up their mess. That's what we do. So,
got you. Now, in terms of your output, you do documentaries and you do fiction?
Well, I started doing fiction, Alex. You know, I wrote a few scripts, and then you know, I was offered some work involving the football factory, which would have led on to the business and that Vertigo Films were involved in.
Right.
And then they, you know, they wanted to make a film with a script that I originally wrote called "It's What We're Like." Yep. Which even all those years ago, when I was not an activist and I hadn't even divulged my own abuse, you know, I was that film that I wrote culminated in the killing of a paedophile.
Right.
All those years ago, and it wound up being called Lunatic because I walked away from a budget because on a lot of there's too much cocaine and there's too much dirt and there's too much pretentiousness within our film industry.
Yeah.
And for example, you know, I was doing some work for Working Title and I discovered that Working Title 2 was allocated £100 million of lottery players' money to make 10 films.
Okay.
And I don't think one of them returned a profit. That's the Weinstein brothers. So.
Right.
How are you, chaps?
Now, Lily, you actually started sort of on the acting side of things.
Yeah, I started about nearly 6 years ago now. We've been working together.
Yeah.
And I was playing Bill's girlfriend in the film The Blunderers.
Yeah.
And then
Lucky
it just
girl.
went from there. And then it just
so
went from there.
As well, yes.
We finished filming that, didn't we? And then we done Billy and Lilly.
Well, yeah, no, what happened was
No, I'm just saying that's how we sort of went into documentary.
Yeah, with Billy and Lilly.
Yeah.
But we'd made... Lily came on board. We made a film called The Blunderers. And The Blunderers was about a 50-year-old black recovering crack cocaine addict and a 50-year-old recovering white alcoholic. I played the recovering white alcoholic. And it was a comedy, and it's a comedy and it's a musical. And these two guys, they lived in a beach hut on the Kent coast. And they were petty criminals, and all they had to get by in life were their petty criminality. So we called it The Blunderers because whatever they'd done...
Careful.
They messed it up. Didn't put no expletive in there. They messed it up, you know, and that's another thing, you know, Alex. It's like, you know, where we come from, to use expletives, to swear, is nothing. It's nothing. It's part of our... It's just our language. It's our culture, which I say rebuilt this country on many occasions. And we can hear our soldiers swearing all the time. Our police officers swearing at children on the street all the time. You know what I mean? So, but apparently, for all those of you out there that might be interested, all you kids out there, the police have been told not to arrest you just for simply swearing at them.
Really?
Well, I think that's right as well, because it is part of a culture. And you know, when I hear awfully, oh, hello, how are you? That's I can't talk to those people. I think, what's going on here? You know what I mean? It seems such an effort to talk. So
probably time now to sort of introduce a clip which goes into another area, because this is a film that you are actually asked to go and shoot. effectively.
Yeah.
One called Forward Forever the Heroes.
Yeah.
So we'll explain a little bit more in a bit, but if we can cue up clip 1, here's a little taster.
Shame on the establishment for seeking to criminalise and punish me when I am a grieved mother whose only child has died at the hands of the state.
There comes a time when we've got to shout, and we've got to stop relying on lawyers. We've got to stop relying on barristers. And we've got to stop relying on social workers to speak for us. Why can't we speak for ourselves? Why can't we speak for ourselves?
We ask for support and care for Julia and the family in a year of waiting.
Okay, quite harrowing stuff there, Bill. Now, Forward Ever UK is an organisation that leads the charge against unlawful deaths in police custody.
Yeah.
So, how did that film come about then?
Well, it's Forward Forever the Heroes is really about 1,000 ethnic minorities that have been killed in police custody since 1960.
Deaths in police custody.
Yeah, officers have been reprimanded, and in the final clip on the clip you just shown, the final piece is Ian Tomlinson's family. You know, Ian Tomlinson's the guy who was pushed to the ground, barged to the ground, beaten first, then barged to the ground by a police officer. Then they put in, you know, they had the pathologist was a little bit dodgy to say the least, but they did put a pathologist in there where this guy, this police officer, was filmed all over the world. Everyone saw it all over the world on a mobile phone. We know what that police officer done. The eye. Now we're looking 4 or 5 years we're going on, this police officer still hasn't been dealt with. This family and Ian Tomlinson are from the lower classes.
Yeah.
And that's what we found, you know, with the London riots, when we filmed some of the London riots. We were saying to people, has this got anything to do with racism? Because there's a lot of black youth was on the street as well, and there's a lot of guns and violence, you know, in the black communities. Everyone said, no, this is a class war. Now, the reason we're highlighting it is we don't want a class war. We really do not want a class war. We want equality. We don't doff our caps anymore, and all of a sudden, you know, we've got all the immigrants from Poland, from Russia, etc., because they don't mind doffing their caps, because they're still in tune with that kind of strict regime,
So
and we are not.
You're effectively saying we're importing a new underclass from...
Absolutely.
I've got you.
Absolutely.
Now, part of that film featured Mickey Powell's remembrance ceremony at the Highfields Community Centre in
Mikey
Leicester.
Powell, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the coroner finally said the verdict on Mikey's death in police custody was positional asphyxia due to police restraints.
Yeah.
Now, how is it that the incident happened in 2003 and it took until 2009, 6 years later, to actually get a coroner to establish that?
Well, it's the wording, it's a descriptive, Alex, of what happened to the guy. It's the same as Ian Tomlinson, you know, it's unlawful death, unlawful killing, etc., etc. Now, to me, what I witnessed, as far as Ian Tomlinson's concerned, and I think his family's listening, and if you are, I love you all, and you know, I hope you get what you should really get, you know, which is justice. This was manslaughter.
Right.
It's not murder because it wasn't premeditated. This is my personal opinion, Alex. I don't see it as murder, but I see this as outrageous. What that police officer done and the way to cover up, because that was at the G20, and Lilly and I, we shot a film called the G20 Raw. I don't believe you're showing that film, you know, because you're going to be showing, I think, 4 of our films.
That's right.
But the G20 Raw, I don't think it's included in that. But people can get it off our website.
Yeah.
We made that film because and while we was making the film, Ian Tomlinson was killed. And the information that was coming out the first couple of days was like, it was a young guy, it was a young kid, he was pushed up against the barriers, or wall, etc., etc. And what do you think, Lil? You say something about this? Because you was there, weren't you? I mean, you know, the G21.
Because you're actually work the camera now. You're effectively.
Yeah, I'm used to being on that side of the camera than this side. Yeah, but it's the opinions of people were practically like all the same, really, weren't they? They all had the same opinion, same views on things. Yeah. We need a change.
Yeah.
We need a change.
So it's like what we see, Lil, doesn't matter to the establishment. It doesn't matter to the establishment, to our institutions, to our judges, to our lawyers, etc., our jackstraws. It doesn't matter what you saw, what you know, if you come from the lower classes. This is how it is. And then we've got this legal talk that nobody can understand.
The old legalese.
Well, where we come from, we call it snidey.
Absolutely.
And it's just becoming snidier and snidier, and that is what political correctness is to us.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, over to you, 86686. Type the word EDGE first, and we'll hear from you after the break. Welcome back to On the Edge. I'm AlexG, but you've been very busy on the texts. Let's hear from Melissa as to what you've been saying.
Thank you, Alex. One viewer has texted in saying, which directors inspired you both, and do you feel that the tradition of the BBC Play for Today and Playhouse dramas will ever be repeated? Denise has sent in, do your documentaries aim to inform people of their rights and how to get them? Jim has sent in, many working class people simply can't be bothered to look deeper at things, they're too apathetic and lazy. And another viewer has sent in, I agree with Bill, the working classes are deliberately dumbed down so that they can be manipulated.
Right, so two interesting comments about the aspects of the working class.
One of them made me a little bit angry anyway, Melissa, you know what I mean? I'm sort of chomping at the bit here. What one do you want?
Well, I mean, this too lazy comment, I mean, that...
Well, that's outrageous.
I mean, that goes back to...
It goes back to education, Alex. Yeah. It goes back to money. It goes back to whether you're getting up in the morning and whether you're getting a meal or whether you've got any money. And today's standards, how it was when I was a kid, aren't as severe. But we still got people... Why do supermarkets sell value food? Who's that for?
Well, you tell me.
Well, we know who it's for, don't we? It's for the lower classes. That's who it's for, you know? So anyway, that's about it on that one, I think, isn't it?
I mean, it always goes back to what people say about people who read particular newspapers, and they say about people who read The Sun.
Yeah.
That those who read The Sun do so they can be told what their opinion is.
Yeah,
and I think this is one of these things.
When you think about it, the guy who says like lower classes are apathetic, etc., etc., that is really ignorant. But you don't know the lower classes, mate, whoever you are. Like I say, we rebuilt the country. You know, it's like you know when Christopher Wren built St Paul's Cathedral. Yeah, no, he never. He drew it. We built it.
It was the Labour that did it, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, and lots of our tunnels. You know, if you look at the tube lines, they were like what were called Irish navvies at the time. My dad came over from Ireland, and my mum, you know, and the abuse when we first came over to this country. I was born in this country in 1956, but when my parents first came over, there were signs on windows if you wanted to go and get a room, no coloureds, Irish or dogs. Now the coloureds were the black people, and they didn't like being called coloured people, so now we call them black people. You know, so the lower working classes have suffered, always are suffering. They're vulnerable now for all the spending cuts, and the bankers. We've just given in this country £14 billion to the bankers. Now the famine in Africa, Somalia. We gave them 42 million. So a handful of bankers got 14 billion, and all these kids and people that are starving, these black people, we gave them 42 million. Now our Prime Minister is worth 30 million. Our Queen, as I was talking to you just before the show started, that our Queen is estimated at about 220 million. But that is only assets. The rich list does not take into account cash. She's got a lot of cash, she's got a lot of gold, she's got a lot of diamonds, etc., etc. And she also owns the island of Jersey. We don't, she does. I think we're going to be coming to that.
Absolutely, and it's certainly the case with those rich lists. The really, really off-the-scale rich aren't even mentioned on it.
Absolutely
the likes
not.
of your Rothschilds are just not in sight on there. So we had the question there about directors that inspired you. Are there any particular people, films, directors that...
Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
Usual suspects then.
Bill Maloney.
I would have to say Bill Maloney, because I have to try and... What I see is I have to try and figure out what Bill wants on the screen. So... if that makes sense.
Yeah, but we're doing documentary now. It's like Billy and Lilly, what the public just saw, what they all just saw, Billy and Lilly go to New York. We was in New York representing the film I was talking about earlier, that became Lunatic, which culminated with the killing of a paedophile. It is a social drama. Gangsters without guns. That's what it was.
Well, I'll tell you what, that basically heralds that clip. So let's have a look at a short clip from Billy and Lilly Go to New York.
Really, madam, I can't understand how you do it in sleep at night. Do you think, as an inflated, do you think those people out there with nuclear weapons, but not say Iran? Yes.
He was pretty sure about that, the Israeli, weren't he? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We could have nuclear weapons, but no one else, you know.
It used to be, back in the 80s, I remember we always discussed the concept of mutually assured destruction. Mainly because Ian Gillan had a single with that exact name that actually put that into context.
Well, the guy who actually exposed Israel's nuclear arsenal, his name was Vanunu. Right. He'd done 20 years in prison for exposing that. All he said was, "We've got nuclear weapons. You're going to prison." Now we've got an outrageous case with America vetoing Palestine becoming a state. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are watching this that don't realise that Palestine, Israel, was Palestine. They owned it all. That was their land. After the Second World War, us, the Americans and the Russians, we said we're going to give Israel their own state. So we're giving Palestine. That's what we've done.
And I think the thing is, if you take the maps from 1948, and I think you can find these on the internet quite easily, they have maps of virtually every 10, 15 years, how the ownership of the land, if you like, has changed, and the Palestinian sections has been shrinking.
Getting smaller and smaller, and the Israel bit is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you know. It's a little bit like the British Empire. All the maps, where you used to see the pink, that is what we owned. I say we owned. We never owned it. It's the hierarchy. You know, you talking about Rothschilds and families like that. They own everything. They own the banks.
So in terms of your films, getting back to one of those questions that our viewers fired in there, will people learn of what their rights are watching any of your films?
Yeah. I mean, our films are not just about child abuse. Our films are about the erosion of our civil liberties, our civil rights. And, you know, if you can go back to the days, it wasn't so long ago, you know, Billie Holiday, the singer. Billie Holiday, the singer, wrote a song called Southern Trees Bear a Strange Fruit. Those southern trees, the fruit that they bore were black people being hung.
Right.
That's what that was about. And what's happening now is the underclass, the lower class of this country, because I believe that there is an ethnic cleansing of the class that I come from originally. Right. And there is a demise. There is a demise in the accent, in the culture. You know, we're the footballers that can't afford to go and watch football. You know what I mean?
Well, this is it.
It's crazy.
Prices are ridiculous,
and then we've got the majority of the footballers are from lower class backgrounds, and they're doing nothing. Or we're going to school and we talk to kids, and you know, there's a lot more that could be done.
And this is the thing about the Billy and Lilly Go to New York film. I mean, initially, your reason for being in New York was to attend a film festival where Lunatic was going to be one of the entries.
that was the New York International Film and Video Festival.
And that got sort of taken, you got sort of taken by surprise when you were there by the nature of the underclass there. And
in Harlem.
The homeless, the underprivileged, and what they were living.
Right. Well, it was the old the American films, you know, and Harlem always held a fascination for me because I was brought up in Brixton, Peckham, and Lewisham, or Brixton, Peckham, and Lewisham, as I say, you know, and. These American films, you know, that we used to watch, you know, and I always wanted to go to Harlem. So Lily and I, when we was out there representing Lunatic, which eventually won Best International Feature at that festival, and I think we made that on £40,000. Yeah, you know. And
well, compare that to the multi-million-dollar.
So what they're making films on now, because budgets are being raped. Yeah. They are. There's no doubt that film budgets are being raped. So if you say, oh, it costs £200 million to do this film, say Titanic, where did the money go? Follow the yellow brick road. That's where the money went.
It's all internal markets and people paying themselves here, there, and everywhere.
Exactly. But it was in fact Billy and Lily go to New York. When we was out there, we bought a small Sony, weren't it? It was a small Sony camera, and it was only as big as your fist.
Yeah, it was a tiny little thing.
Yeah, it was a tiny little thing, and. I said, look, bring it out there. Take the camera out there, Lil, and we might go into Harlem. So while all the other filmmakers were up in Manhattan, ramming it up their noses and doing what they're doing, Lily and I went into
hit the streets of New
York. We
hit
the streets of Harlem, and we that was when we started making documentary. When we came back from there. Because we went into Harlem and we talked about all the poor people on the streets of Harlem and that what they can afford, what they can't afford, like somewhere to live. You know what I mean? Yeah. We were seeing people in black guys in wheelchairs, sitting outside laundromats at 4 o'clock in the morning in blizzards. You know what I mean? They had nowhere to go and begging. And you know, when we came back to London, we done the same. On the streets of London, that's where you see me giving the lady a hug, you know. And all she wanted was £7 for her bed for the night. She wasn't a drinker, but she was on psychotic drugs, etc., and things like that, which is what we do with our kids as well now, you know. And then Billy and Lily is very, very hard hitting, and it really is gritty, and we are having a go at everyone in it. That should, we believe, be taken to account. Sure. Sure. For, you know, so when we had to spoof it. Yep. So in that film, there's a twist in it. That's all I'm saying. Right. Okay. So people have got to go online and watch, definitely. Well, they've got to go online. Well, you're going to be showing it on this channel. That's one of the ones we've got. That's one of the films you're going to be showing. So basically, look out for that. It'll be on in the next few weeks. Watch the edgemediatv.com website for details of when it will be broadcast amongst several of Bill and Lily's other projects. Meanwhile, I wanted to actually sort of take you back to that idea of coming to London and filming with people in London, because one of your latest ventures was looking at the London riots. Yeah. So we've got a short clip here, clip number 3. So if we can line up clip 3, let's take a look.
Low class people, poor people like me, can't send my daughter and my son to university because of the high cost. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they need to look at that.
We're just driven from Catford now. We're spoken to some people in Catford. We're trying to get to the root of this and let the people have their say. Now we're following 2 fire engines. We've got one coming up. I'm just going to let this fire engine. I'm getting right up his arse. I'm going to tail him up. And we're following these fire engines to wherever they may take us. So, get it. Watch it. Right, now film it. Film it. Watch it. You've got to put it. Film it, yeah? That is Bromley High Street. We better start listening. We can't start shooting. We can't start shooting our children on the street.
Which is what they want to do with the rubber bullets. They want to bring back rubber bullets. But if I, you know...
I mean, it brings up the topic of agents provocateurs, because myself and Ian Crane, we were discussing this on a previous On the Edge about the riots, and it all went very quiet on something that was mentioned fairly regularly very early on in the coverage about guys in ski masks with walkie-talkies seeming to actually sort of being manipulating the events. So what's your stance on that possibility?
Well, first of all, of course it's a possibility, but who are they working for? Who were they working for?
Yes.
And if they did exist. And also, you know, what we've got to bear in mind is everyone is denigrating the youth of this country. Now, we've got 1 million youth unemployed in this country, and I know you get the old school and say, oh, I was unemployed and, oh, I couldn't... First one up in the morning got the shoes in my house, and we listen. Bear in mind is everyone is denigrating the youth of this country. It's gone. It's like saying to black people, you're lucky. We used to hang you lot. We used to do this to you lot.
Yeah.
You should count yourself lucky. No, 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 no. That attitude is still predominant.
Very strong.
And you know, it's like I know victims of abuse, which is what we specialise in. They go into court, they can't even give their case in court because they are overwhelmed by the accents, by the legal jargon. When they ask a question, they're never answered. They're asked loads of questions, but they never get answers for it.
Certainly, it's something my wife picked up at the weekend when we were meeting some relatives for a reunion, that it was a sort of level of racism at a particular age group, which she thought had gone away, but it was apparent that it hadn't. Yeah, well, it's like,
you see, if we're all fighting each other, then we're not watching them lot up there, are we?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Divide and conquer. But...
Divide and conquer, absolutely. We all know, everyone watching this knows that we go to war for oil or something else, whatever else we want. We know that. That, you know, in this country, our food is going up. But we're not growing anything in this country anymore. No, all important. This is... We shall build Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land. We're not growing anything.
Meanwhile, let's hear some more from you. 86686 is the number for the text. Start with the word EDGE, E-D-G-E, and we'll hear some more comments from you after this break. Welcome back to On the Edge. I'm AlexG, and I want to introduce to you once more Melissa, who's going to be telling us what you've been saying across those old fingers on the mobile phone brigade.
Thank you, Alex. Steve has texted in saying, this sounds very refreshing from the usual mind-numbing crud we get served, realism. Paul has said, what can we do to get equality when they keep us all in fear? Someone else has texted in saying, never fear, the revolution is coming. Do you have any comments on Wall Street? Maxie has sent in, someone should do a story about benefits, as I, like many, have to go without in order to feed our kids. And another viewer has asked if the two of you are on Twitter.
Well, there we go.
Well, comment on Wall Street, really, all I can think of at the moment is...
And that's your learned
Sorry
opinion.
about that, Alex. I know it's
your learned opinion.
It's not very intellectual.
I mean,
it's just a scam.
I would assume that what they're talking about is this occupying Wall Street, which its news is starting to break. That this is actually controlled opposition, and that it is designed not to actually accomplish anything.
But it's, if you look at the world economy, it's about the haves and have-nots, and then. That is where, you see, this class thing, it has to come into play, you know. As you move down the classes, the money diminishes. And I really felt for the lady who said that she really is finding it difficult to feed her children. As you move down the classes, and our Queen, I was talking to you before the show, our Queen... To be a lord or to be the monarch, you have to believe that you have a divine right to rule over the people. Now that means, Alex, that they have had permission from God to rule over us, a little bit like George Bush, who said, God told me to go to war, oh, that's all right then.
Yeah.
As long as it was God.
End of story.
Yeah.
Where if we can see the paperwork, that'll be fine.
Lovely, that'll do us, you know what I mean? So, you know, you've got all the different prophets, etc. What I believe about religion is, say if you take Jesus and Muhammad, all right? So what we're doing, we're saying, we got the best player, Jesus.
Yeah.
He's the world champion, we got him, you lot ain't. Because you're poor, because you haven't got anything, because you're walking around with long beards and you look strange and this, that and that, you know what I mean? I mean, what I've got against a lot of the Arab world and the third world is their treatment of women and children.
Yeah.
Because young girls as young as 9 are being forced to marry guys.
Yeah,
and
arranged marriages.
So, Lily was telling me something the other night about what happened.
I switched over, so I didn't get what it was called, but there was a documentary on child marriages,
right.
Arranged child marriages.
India.
And it was in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was a young girl reporting on it, and she said that a lot of them, they are forced to marry and, you know, have sex, live a proper man and wife relationship at such a young age.
Yeah.
And because their bodies are not grown, you know, they're giving birth, and the baby's either stillborn or the mother's not making it. And if they do survive, they live a life of incontinence.
Blimey.
Because their body's just not.
It's outrageous.
Not ready, effectively.
But it's still happening here. But we're allowed to do it because it's written in the Quran, or it's written in the Bible, or it's written in the Torah. You know, I've got a crazy fact, right? You know, you've had Brian Garish on here.
Oh, we have. Yeah.
I like Brian. He's a nice man. You know, I've spoken to Brian a few times, done a few interviews with him. Now, I made Brian aware a couple of years ago that 5 years ago. First of all, I've got to tell you that the Queen is the figurehead of the Church of England, right?
Yep.
Christians. Christians fight against Satan.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
5 years ago, it was made legal to practice Satanism in Her Majesty's Royal Navy. Now, she better make her mind up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Has she got a divine right from God to rule over us? She's the head of the Church of England, but she's allowed Satanism to be practiced in Her Majesty's Royal Navy. Now, we know how superstitious sailors are. I don't think if you're walking through the ship and you see someone like, you know, sacrificing a chicken or something, you know what I mean? It's just all so ambiguous.
And talking of the Queen brings us on to Jersey and the fact that this is a crown dependency, as they call it.
Hope de la Garenne.
And this gives us into clip 4, which is from a film called Sun, Sea and Satan. Have a look and then we'll discuss more after this.
I'm wishing myself luck, I'm wishing Lilly luck, I'm wishing Baron luck, and I'm wishing Pie and Mesh Films luck in our quest to fully expose this horrific story. We're just a mile from Hope de la Garenne. You got it, Lil? You zooming on it? Now look at that strange face on that kid. And that kid is now, they turned it around so it's holding his... This is a mile from Hope de la Garenne. Let's get right on his face. I'm afraid of Jesus Christ.
In 1868, St Saviour's Residential Mental Hospital was opened. In 1962, a child resident of Hope de la Garenne was told by a psychiatrist that if he repeated his allegations of sex abuse, he would be sent to the mental hospital.
So again, very tough subjects to get
Outrageous.
involved in.
What's happening on that island that is owned by the Queen, you can call it crown dependency, whatever you want, is not owned by the UK, is outrageous and evil.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we went out there, our lives changed when we made that film.
Yeah.
You know, it's the insinuations that are going on out there. But first of all, what I would like to say while I'm here, the guy who's in charge of the case, his name's Lenny Harper.
Right.
Now, those paedophilic statues, you've got a statue there, and the one on the left is performing oral sex on a penis.
Good God.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other kid, what you just saw, exposing himself, etc. That is on the main drag.
Yeah.
That is less than a mile from Haute de la Garenne. When the
You can't miss it.
no, when the investigation was going on proper.
Yeah.
Now, what if I met Lenny Harper? I would say to Lenny Harper, those dolls have been there for 5 years, Lenny. Why didn't you see them? We saw them after being there for 2 days. Then you got Stuart Sivray.
Yep.
Stuart Sivray was the original whistleblower, being put up as the hero of the island. You was there for 8 years, Stuart. 8 years. He was getting messages. He said he never got the messages. I'm not saying that he's a wrong one, but I'd like him to answer that question, why it took him so long to expose it. And I would like to ask Lenny Harper why he never saw those paedophilic statues that were there for 5 years. And it was after our exposure of those statues that they were removed.
Right.
And they were on a main drag outside a very opulent house. Jersey is... what do you think?
The guy came out as well, wasn't it? We drove past there like on several occasions, and he'd gone to the trouble of changing the outfits, changing the hats, turning the figures round,
Right.
putting plaits on like little wigs, and so he was
So one day we've got a little boy, one day we've got a little girl.
Right.
You know, and we lost it out there in our apartment.
Horrific.
Our apartment was searched 3 times while we were out there because it was Lily. She noticed something when we came in. There was myself, Lily, and a guy called Darren Barber.
Right.
Darren, he was only 18 at the time, Darren, wasn't he? But he's a genius with notes. He didn't miss anything, and he was very useful in editing, you know. And Lily said to Darren one day, "There's things being moved about in here, in this apartment we were staying in." And when we first got out there, they moved us from the apartment that we were that we paid for, into a very plush bungalow.
Yeah.
Very plush. It was lovely. We was well pleased with it. So Lil said she started getting a matchstick and wedging it in the doors.
Yeah.
And 2 of the doors with the matchsticks in, the matchsticks were on the floor. She'd done it 3 times that happened. So we've gone...
So you knew.
So we knew, you know, that's Lily's brain, you know what I mean? She thinks we're a criminal mind, don't you, Lil? You know what I mean? But you've got to, when you're fighting people like this, you must be able to think with a criminal mind.
And I've saw this was pointed in the direction of this article from The Guardian in May 2011 by a writer called Mark Townsend. Now, this is interesting in terms of putting this into a context, but...
Nothing to do with Pete Townsend, is he?
No, I hope not.
Thank God for that.
Well, you never know.
Well, he's on a sex offenders register as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of what Mark Townsend had to say about things, grab this. Hundreds of children who have been trafficked into the UK are disappearing each year from the care system amid allegations that government and local authorities are failing to protect them. The Child Exploitation and Online Protection Centre, a government agency, estimates that at least 300 juveniles identified as trafficked have disappeared from local authority care over the past 3 years. Collated figures from the NSPCC yesterday showed they had dealt with 549 trafficked children in the past 3.5 years, although there was no indication of how many had since disappeared after being delivered into care. So that as a statistic...
That's what we're dealing with at the moment. At the moment, Lily and I, we're involved in a major documentary, and we're working with the Member of Parliament, Kate Hoey.
Right.
Now, Kate Hoey has been a Member of Parliament for Vauxhall for 22 years. The case that we are dealing with shows absolute... It is outrageous, actually, the manipulation of social workers, police officers...
Everyone involved.
Every institution, with psychiatrists, doctors. If a kid says... we've got this... He's a man now.
Right.
And a psychiatrist abused him while he was assessing him.
OK.
All right?
Yep.
But the kid... Who is now a man who made the accusation was fobbed off by the police. A psychiatrist abused you? What are you talking about? Don't be stupid. So we got the kid who is now a man, we still call them kids because they're victims.
Yep.
He took a polygraph test, a lie detector test, which is 98.2% positive if it comes out. And he passed it with flying colours. So it showed the people that made the accusations against him, and it wasn't just on this one accusation, it was a few. It showed that he was telling the truth. That meant the others were lying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've been working with Kate Hoey, and better get your finger out, Kate, because it's going to go one way or the other for you.
Right. So
yes, it is.
Action
one way
is expected.
you can come out. She can come out as a good girl or a bad girl. We don't care. We've got the footage,
Gotcha.
and she knows it.
So there we go.
Yeah, and you know, we did go into Parliament and we interviewed Kate Hoey, and politicians to us, I'm afraid, have become the enemy.
Yeah.
I said to her, no one trusts politicians, and she said, I know.
Certainly, if people go to YouTube and look at the Pie and Mash YouTube site, they'll see some wonderful footage of you interrogating or attempting to interrogate the likes of Harriet Harman and indeed Ed Balls.
Ed Balls, Harriet Harman. The question that I asked them both was, what are you, and David Dimbleby, let's not leave out David Dimbleby. David Dimbleby had me ejected from the first Prime Minister's question time when it was all the three...
the big three together.
Yeah, the big three together. It was, like he said, like Dimbleby said, this is a moment in history. And I said to him that I want to ask a question. And he said, what is your question? This was off air.
Yeah.
I said, I want to know what these people, Gove was there, are going to do about institutional paedophile rings that are operating in this country now. We've just managed to get Kate Hoey to ask this question in Parliament, and she's asked it in the written form. And do you know what Kate Hoey said to me at the end of the interview? She went, come on, Bill, how many members of Parliament are going to ask what are we doing about institutional paedophile rings in this country now? And I thought, are you asking it, Kate, because your arm's up here? Because you're dealing with Pie and Mash films?
And that's the trick. And this is the thing that you're going to see on Edge Media in the coming weeks. Look out for the documentaries that we'll be screening from Pie and Mash. And indeed, do go and visit our website, www.edgemediatv.com. In fact, we now have a new set of advertising rates thrashed within an inch of their lives to get you to advertise your products and services with Edge Media. And indeed, Louise, our sales manager, is looking forward to hearing from you on that front. Also at the website, you can find out how to get your own show on air with us. Take a look. You'll probably be pleasantly surprised on all fronts in terms of raving bargains aplenty. So my thanks to our guests.
Could I just say one more thing, Alex? Have I got?
You've got 10 seconds.
10 seconds. You can watch a load of our work for free, and all you've got to do right now, log on to pieandmashfilms.com. And I would like to also say good luck to Helping Hands Against Abuse, who support Pie and Mash Films to the best of their ability, and we support them. So that's
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you very much.
All I've got to say is, under the radar, around the world, you've been on the edge.